Good afternoon. Today we have the pleasure and privilege of having an old friend, Michael Wood, former minister, former member of parliament. He's making a return to Mount Roskill. While we welcome him, we wish him all the best in the ensuing elections next year in 2026. Michael, welcome, and how are you this afternoon?
Well, thank you. Thank you for those kind words. And I'm really good this afternoon. I've had a good week. We had a wonderful Labour conference last weekend that was extremely energising.
Yes.
The Pahutakawa are in bloom.
Yes.
It's only 3 weeks till Christmas. So I'm taking my kids to get a Christmas tree this weekend. So I'm happy.
That's great. And they are happy too.
They are.
Right. Michael, your return to politics, you never were out of politics, but your return to Mount Roskill. Can you give us a recap of how you're looking forward to it and what are the lessons you have learned in the last 3 years or 2.5 years, as it were, and how you wish to move forward so that your constituents in particular and the people of New Zealand in general can look forward to a renewed Michael Wood?
Yes, well, I'm really looking forward to 2026 and the challenge and the opportunity of campaigning in Mount Roskill, of winning the confidence of the electorate, and of being someone who can fight for my community once again. I love the time I had in politics as an MP and a minister. My approach to it was to seize it. And to hard charge at trying to make changes as much as to the fullest extent that I possibly could. Everyone knows back in 2023 that I had a bad year, and I did make some mistakes at that time, and that had a very, very high cost for me, both politically but also personally. And as a lot of people who have been through hard times will tell you, you actually learn a lot from those experiences.
And you also come to know who your friends are.
You sure do. Sometimes there are not quite so many of them at those times as there were when things were going really well. That's life. But I've learned some lessons about making sure I look after those sorts of matters and keep them tidy. Even when you're very, very busy with other things and focused on the big political work ahead of you, you need to sort that stuff out. That's an important lesson for me. I learned over that difficult personal time for me that I love this stuff, because it would have been very easy to have walked away and had a quieter life and not to have to face some of the ongoing scrutiny I will face. But I love it. I love the idea of fighting for my community, of getting in there, of finding the things that I think are unfair or unjust and need to change, and then campaigning to change those things and delivering real change. That's something I did a lot when I was an MP and minister. Something I want to do again, and I have renewed energy to do that. And I actually feel a more complete person for this experience, who's better equipped to deal with some of those challenges in the future.
You were a good MP and you were a good minister. There's no doubt about it. What checks would you keep in place to ensure that none of these come back and hit you? Have you taken care of all your personal stuff before you step back?
Yes, I have. So that's been one of the simple things to do before I go back into this, is to just make sure that actually all of those affairs that I ended up tripping over basically are as simple and tidy as possible. I basically don't have any investments beyond my KiwiSaver anymore, for example, just to take away.
You got rid of your airport shares.
That's right. Well, that was done 3 years ago. The money went to charity, so there's no ongoing issue there. So dealt with those things in a practical sense. But also absorb the bigger lesson, which, as I say, the problem that occurred for me at the time was that I was really focused. As I say, I'm being a minister who was driving change, going 100 miles an hour, delivering changes to the law, heavily engaged in the work of being a minister across multiple portfolios, trying to find time to be a father and a husband. And some of this other stuff didn't get sorted when I needed to sort it. That was on me. And
so have you sold the shares in the airport?
Yes, that was sold several years ago.
So you're a free man
is
now.
To make sure you leave some time. You actually make sure you have some balance in your life. And that was probably where I became a bit unstuck at the time. I was so focused on charging hard at that job, lost a little bit of balance. And this was a spillover from that for me. And that's it was a difficult lesson to learn, but an important one. And hopefully it makes me a better person and in the future a better MP.
I'm sure it would. Michael, what change have you seen in Mount Roskill as an electorate from the time you were MP and from the time now you're going to contest. I look at it from two layers. One is the change in the constituency itself. Some areas have been added, some areas have been taken away. And secondly, a lot of people have left and gone to Australia. You may be having new constituents. As far as the Indian community is concerned, Mount Roskill is, I think, number 3 or 4 in terms of the number of Indians living in a constituency. Tell us something about that.
Well, that's all true. Firstly, there has been a change to the boundaries of Mount Roskill, along with a number of other electorates in Auckland. So we've shifted westwards, and we now have all of Blockhouse Bay, a large part of Avondale South, all of New Windsor, and we lose some areas around Balmoral and Wesley. So it's about 75% the same area that it was before, and about 25% a new area. So that's a significant change. And tomorrow, for example, I'm heading out into that new area to meet with people from Avondale and Blockhouse Bay, to connect with them and welcome them to Mount Roskill. So that's one change. You're right as well that there has been this flight of people out of New Zealand. That has been one of the tragedies of the last few years. This government's poor economic management, in my view, has been a loss of opportunity, many young people leaving. But there's a third part of that in Mount Roskill, which has changed. We now have huge parts of Mount Roskill which have been depopulated because the government has stopped the large-scale housing development program that was under the previous Labor government. Old houses were being removed and new houses were being rebuilt. The government has just stopped that. And so we have these huge areas now which are just wastelands. I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of acres in places like Roskill South, Wesley, Avondale, Waikowhai. And this has depopulated some of those communities and led to a real feeling that Mount Roskill has been somewhat neglected. And that's one of the things I'll be fighting for this year.
You were elected first to Mount Roskill on the 5th of December 2016 by-election. And at that time, you promised a lot for Mount Roskill constituents. Have you fulfilled all of them, or any of them, or none of them?
Well, there's still always work to be done, but actually we got a lot achieved. So the biggest issue at that time was action on housing. And so I worked very hard along with colleagues in the Labor government to make sure we got investment in housing in Mount Roskill. And you can go to a community like Mount Roskill South now, and you can see the fruits of that. There are about 300 relatively old state houses there, replaced now by about 900 high-quality new warm, dry houses, a mix of state houses, but also quality private housing for purchase.
Were these started during your time?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
And then that further investment has come into other parts of the electorate, but is now being chopped off by this government. So housing, number one, yes. Number two, one of the big issues I campaigned on in that election was making sure that we had a police station again in Mount Roskill that the public could access, because that had been stopped under the previous national government. I spent a couple of years in the office of the Minister of Police, meeting with the Commissioner for Police, and was able to win that for the community. I was a consistent advocate for better public transport in our area, and we got a number of good wins in that, like the new 191 bus between Linfield and Blockhouse Bay, which I succeeded in winning. And of course, we were on the way with bringing light rail through Mount Roskill as well, again, stopped by this government. So, I do feel proud of some of those accomplishments of trying to faithfully pick up on the things that the community wanted and doing what I could to deliver them. But, the challenges remain, and some of the challenges are bigger. And so that's why, when I was talking earlier about why I'm looking forward to next year, I think if we want to really make Mount Roskill everything that it could be, it does need an MP who will stand up and fight. It's not good enough just to be an MP who turns up to events, takes a photo, says, "Isn't this nice?" You've got to get in there. You've got to sit down with your colleagues, even if they're senior ministers, and say, "This is what my community needs." You've got to be able to have the confidence and the experience to go to council or government agencies, know how they work, and then make sure that you can get changes. And that's what I hope I can bring to the role.
Your leader, Michael, has been spelling out some policies, and some of them have raked up debate nationwide, and it will continue because it's a healthy debate to have on issues such as capital gains tax and what Labour would offer in lieu of that. What are the policies that you would be highlighting in your campaign? What are the policies, if they have been announced or they have not yet been announced, which are close to your heart?
Yeah. Well, Chris Hipkins has been really clear as leader that the next Labor government needs to be very focused. You can't do everything all at once. And perhaps sometimes in the past we did spread ourselves a bit too thin. So he's been very clear that focusing on jobs, health, and housing are the big three priorities. And you see that a bit with the announcement around capital gains tax. It's a simple, targeted capital gains tax, doesn't apply to the family home. And what it means is it will help to shift the economy towards investment in more productive enterprise rather than just continually selling houses to each other for the purposes of investment. That drives jobs, productivity, and growth.
Right.
But we've then also said we're not just going to put that money into the general government coffers. Every single dollar will go into repairing the health system, which has become so broken down under the national government, starting with those 3 free doctors' visits, and every New Zealander getting a Medicard. That's what will give them the three free doctors' visits, but we'll also be able to make other commitments, and we have started to do that. For example, free cervical screening for women as well will be one of the benefits that will be able to be loaded onto that card for every single New Zealander. And there'll be other investments we can make in health there. So that's sort of what Chris is talking about in terms of the focus. We have the CGT policy. It drives a stronger economy, but then we're also able to improve our health system with it. So I think those are really strong policies to begin with. Similarly, the New Zealand Investment Fund, Nationals talking about selling some of those state assets. We're saying, let's actually put them into a fund where if they generate revenue,
right,
we can put that into driving forward innovative new businesses to drive jobs and growth in New Zealand, and actually start to really focus on building up a strong domestic economy instead of seeing more of our economy sold off to offshore interests.
So would you like to get back your immigration work and work relations and safety and your picked transport portfolios?
I loved all of those portfolios. The reality is, if we have the privilege of getting back into government, it's then up to the Prime Minister who gets what jobs, and you don't do yourself
How
any
confident
favours
are you?
that we'll get back into government.
No. Yeah, that's first question.
Yeah.
Secondly, how confident are you of getting back to the cabinet?
Yeah, I'll take those in turn. I do feel that there's a real opportunity for Labor to pull off an historic win next year.
What makes you say that, Mike?
Well, we've never come back after one term before. That's never, ever happened in New Zealand's history. But I think that there is, firstly, such a sense of disillusionment with Christopher Luxon, his poor leadership, frankly, the failing economy, and the divisive, petty kind of government that we've seen from this coalition. There's an anger out there. We've never had such poor levels of confidence in a first-term government as we have with this one, ever, basically. So I think people are looking around. And what I think people are increasingly seeing in Labor is a party that is offering some positivity, that is offering some solutions, and is getting focused in on those things that actually matter the most to people. So we don't take that for granted. There's a heck of a lot of hard work that we've got to do over the next year or so, but it's a real opportunity. And I used the word hope before. I think that's always what Labor governments are about. When people feel that things are not going well, when people are leaving the country in record numbers because they don't see opportunity here, it's our job to provide some credible hope. So I feel optimistic about that next year, but there's hard work. And then in terms of moving back into cabinet at whatever point Labor is in government, yes, I would like to get there. I think every MP, that's a good thing to aim for, because that's where you can really make changes. As to when that will happen, I'm prepared to be patient about it.
A man in the waiting.
I want to earn my way back into the seat in Mount Roskill, and to be respectful of all of the processes that we have, both in the election and what happens after that. So first step is trying to win back Mount Roskill. We'll then see what happens, but I'll do everything that I can to make sure that I'm in there fighting for Mount Roskill people.
As far as people leaving New Zealand, especially going to Australia, isn't it unfair for you to say that it started happening during national government? I thought the trend began when you were in power.
We've always had a flow of people between Australia and New Zealand, and it tends to be that when our economy slows down, people do shift to Australia. The problem we've had under National is that because of their economic mismanagement, they have prolonged a recession that should not be happening because of their fiscal policies, because of the way that they have pulled out of so many key investments in our economy and the lack of direction they've given, that we've continued to see people flood offshore. We have unemployment that's now the highest it's been for a very, very long time. The number of people under 25, not in employment, education or training, is now about 25%. These are figures we haven't seen since the 1990s in many cases. And so, you're right, there's always a cycle of people coming and going from Australia, but the cycle has become prolonged and deep this time. And it's on Nicola Willis and Christopher Luxon. They've been steering this economy. They're the ones who have made these decisions. They're the ones who chopped so much infrastructure spending when they came in that they scared off investment and lost jobs. They're the ones who cut thousands of jobs from the public service and just thought there were no consequences.
But with respect, Michael,
Yeah.
with respect, there's a fear among people that if Labour comes, you will start controlling and you will become unfriendly to businesses and you might shy off foreign investors. How would you address that?
Well, what I would say is that if you're in business today, things better or worse than they were 2 years ago.
And it's difficult to say because we've had a slide in the economy.
Well, but that's right. We've had a slide in the economy under this government. And I talk to small businesses in Mount Roskill all the time, and they say that this is worse than during COVID, and it's probably worse than during the GFC back in 2008, 2009. And yeah, we're not 3 months after the election now. We're over 2 years since the last election. This is National's economy. This is a result of the decisions that they have made. So actually, this is the reality under National, and we can be so much better than this.
My question was, how would you ensure that people's fear that you'll become very unfriendly to businesses and investors will shy away because of your policy? I'm sure you want foreign investment.
It's an important part of our economy.
Yeah. So how will you ensure that some of the policies of Labour will become business friendly?
I think one of the things we need to do there is firstly to make sure that we have got the right policies, which are about generating jobs, growth and investment. I mentioned the New Zealand Investment Fund earlier, and that's actually about making sure that we have a government that actually gets engaged and supports the growth of those sorts of innovative sectors that we need. It's about things like making sure we have an energy policy which doesn't strangle and kill businesses. That's what's happening at the moment. These record high energy prices are literally causing many large firms, including some that have our investments from foreign owners, to close down. Places like Kawerau and South Auckland, many mills closing at the moment. That's something that is very much on our radar. And then I think it's about making sure that we do actually get alongside, particularly the small, medium enterprise sector, the SME sector, where there is so much opportunity, where often people are, it's hard going. People are often pretty close to the margins, and just giving those people confidence that Labour will back them. And that actually when you have an economy that gets back into growth, that's the single best thing we can do to support those businesses. The reason they're struggling at the moment is because people are losing their jobs, their wages are too low, they're worried about the future, and they're closing their wallets. People don't eat out as much. They delay the next purchase. That's why small businesses are struggling. So if we can have a government that actually drives a growth agenda, that's the single best thing we can do to help those businesses. And where they have concerns or where there are views about things that we may or may not do, we need to sit down, have respectful discussions, and make sure we explain our program really clearly, because I think it can actually be very positive for the business sector.
I'm sure you share the views of your colleagues that this retail crime group should be scrapped. And it's a wasteful expenditure, as we believe.
Well, I think some of the examples we're seeing come through about some of the types of expenditure very legitimately raise questions around the operation of this group. Duncan Webb, our Justice spokesperson, has exposed some of that during Scrutiny Week at Parliament over the last week or so. Look, of course, we need to make sure that we take action to keep retailers safe, and that is a really important priority.
You don't need a group for that.
Yeah, you need good policy. You need to resource police properly. Right? You need to make sure you actually have the numbers in police coming through so that they can be responsive and be preventing crime in the first place. And we need to have a mature conversation about this, not just dangle out populist policies to buy votes. I hate that so much. One of the things we know about this, if you have a generation of young people who fall out of school, who end up in gangs or youth gangs, where things are broken down in the family, those are the kids that are going to end up committing some of these terrible crimes. And we need to get in to make sure that people get...
Well, it was set up to shut him up.
And there's punishment when that happens.
Yeah.
But isn't it better to get in and stop that happening in the first place? And I would like to see much more focus on that so people don't get hurt.
Yeah. Anything else, Michael, that you would like to tell our readers? You've been a long friend of Indian Newslink. As people would know, we first introduced you in 2011. Then you came in to contest in the botany electorate, if you remember. Prior to that, of course, we promoted you as a councillor. Feel free to share your views with your readers and viewers.
Well, I think I might say two additional things. The first is that in Mount Roskill, obviously, the Indian community is a huge part of our life in Mount Roskill.
Right.
Contributes in so many ways to the economic life of the community, the social and cultural life, our education system, our health system, our small businesses. Everywhere you look in Mount Roskill, the Indian community makes this extraordinary contribution and has done for a long time now. So for me, this will be a very important part of the next year, is connecting and reconnecting with people in the community. And I have to say that I've been extraordinarily grateful and humbled over the last few years. That you said before that sometimes you find out who your true friends are when the chips are down. But when the chips were down for me, it was very often community leaders from the Indian community who were still there for me, showed real loyalty and friendship. And so for me, that's a genuine bond for me that I want to repay is the wrong word because it's not transactional.
Yeah, no.
But I want to be there to fight for this community, whether it's on those issues around community safety, whether it's on affordable housing, whether it's on other small business issues, or just making sure that the community is heard in many ways. Number one, that's extraordinarily important for me. And look, number two is the kind of campaign I want to run next year. I feel re-energized about this. I'm going to be on every single street of Mount Roskill over the next year, and our campaign is going to be driven by face-to-face interaction. So I would just say to anyone in the community, if there's anything you want to talk about with me, about any policy, any issue that you have, anything you want to know about me, find me, send me a message. I'll come to your street. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to your neighbours.
Are you setting up an office?
We likely will a little bit later on in the campaign as well. Actually, as much as possible, I want to come out to people, not make them come to me. In the Mount Roskill constituency,
as redrawn,
around about 65,000 people.
It's more than the average 60,000.
It's around about the average. They all have to be within, I think it's a 5% threshold. It's around about that number, and usually about 40,000 people vote at the election. One of my goals this year will be to make sure we get that participation rate up as much as possible. I want everyone to have their say in this election and people to feel like there's a good reason to vote.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we will have more occasions to talk to you.
Thanks, Venkat.
And thanks for coming on. Thank you.